Hello good people, welcome to your number one channel on farming. And today, I will just talk about silage. And this is a topic that most of you have been inquiring. I want to tackle some of the most asked questions, which is, how much silage am I supposed to feed my cow per day? Another question is, what is the size of the bunker do I have to make to be able to preserve fodder, probably for 2 or 3 cows? For this and much more, make sure you follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Farm with Paul. And I'm going to take you through. My name is Paul. One of the most important thing to know about silage is silage rarely adds the value of your fodder. So if you want to have your fodder that is of very high quality, then your harvesting stage is very crucial. Your agronomical activities that happen in the farm is what will determine the quality of your silage. For instance, if you have the maize and you want to keep it for silage, if you harvest your maize at dough stage and chop it very well using a maize chopper, you'll be able to have silage that is of good quality if you preserve in the right way. But I've seen a lot of people actually also waiting for the maize to dry up, harvest the maize for human consumption, and then keep the maize stovers, the dry maize stovers, for silage, which that is one of the poorest quality you can get for your dairy cows. Some people actually leave their Napier to overgrow around 5 meters and even some to 3 meters and feed that to their cows or preserve silage using that. By that, you are losing a lot of nutrients. The right stage to actually harvest your maize is what we call at dough stage, whereby the maize is not very hard and it's not milky. Then that one can be chopped and preserved as silage. And if you do not know how to make silage using maize, you can actually go back and watch our videos. I'm actually going to put the link below so that you can learn on how to make silage either by using of maize or use of Napier. Now, how much silage do you require to actually feed a cow? Most of the material we use have different dry matter content. For instance, if maize harvested at the right stage, we'll have a dry matter content of around 30 to around 50%, depending if you wilted your maize a bit or how wet your silage is. When it comes to Napier also, Napier is said to have an average of 20% dry matter content. And when you talk about dry matter content, probably someone will be asking, what is this dry matter content? What I mean about dry matter content is, if you have around 100 kgs of Napier and a fresh Napier, you're talking about fresh Napier, and you extract all the water in that Napier, the remaining material will be 20 kgs. That is what we call the dry matter. And mark you, the dry matter should have also the nutrients in it. Or someone else will argue as, if we are talking about the amount of dry matter, then I'm going to dry my maize completely and harvest the combs and give it completely dry. Remember, the dry matter that is in that material, that is where your minerals, your proteins and carbohydrates are found. Now, when it comes to a cow consumes 3 to 4% dry matter content of its body weight. For instance, if your cow is around 500 kgs, will consume around 15 kgs of the dry matter content to around 20 kgs. Now, different materials have different dry matter content. And for Napier, if harvested at the right stage, is said to have a dry matter content of around 20%, which is an average if harvested at the right stage. And this right stage is around 1 meter high. Why is it the 1 meter high? And for the maize, it's also at the dough stage. This is because that is when the nutrients are maximally available in that crop. If you leave your crop to overgrow, the dry matter content, yes, will increase. But what will happen is, it will reduce the nutrition factor in it. And that is where I start calling other people manure farmers, because you left your Napier to overgrow, meaning the nutrition content is very low. So the excessive fiber that you're going to feed your cow, you're going to produce manure, and it's not actually going to reflect on the increase in milk production. Now, When I use the two examples of maize silage and Napier, let's see how much should your cow feed in terms of maize, and then you'll come into Napier. Maize said to have an average of 30% to around 50%, depending on how you wilted it before making silage. If you can use 30% of dry matter content in maize silage, then you will have to know two things. You have to know the weight of the cow that you're feeding. For example, if your cow is 500 kgs, and you also have to know a cow consumes 3 to 4% dry matter content of its body weight. Then, how do you determine the amount of Napier or fresh maize that you're going to feed to your cow? What we say is, if in 100 kgs, in terms of maize silage, if in 100 kgs, we have 30 kgs of the dry matter content, what about 15 kgs dry matter content? How much fresh are we going to have? What we do is, we'll divide 15, divide by 30, multiply by 100. In a 500 kg cow, we require 50 kgs. And how have we arrived to that 50? We have said if your cow that is around 500 kgs will consume 15 kgs dry matter content. And for maize silage, it contains 30%. And when you say 30% means in every 100 kgs, we have 30 kgs of dry matter content. How much of the wet silage do we need to actually have the 15 kg dry matter content that is required by our cow? That means it's 15, you divide by 30, multiply by 100, which will give you 50 kgs of the maize silage per day. Now, to determine the amount of maize silage you require to feed your cow for a whole year, what you'll do is you'll get the 50 kgs that you need per day, then multiply by 365 days. For example, let's use a very simple thing. We say, for example, you have 400 days in a year. It's 400 multiply by 50, which will give us around 20,000. Which means if you're exclusively feeding on maize silage, you haven't added on what we call concentrates, you haven't wilted your maize very well, and now what you have is a 30% dry matter content, so it's a very wet silage, and you are not feeding in anything else, you require around 20 tons, which can be produced approximately 1 to 2 acres depending on the maize variety you have. If you are exclusively feeding on maize silage, when you talk about Napier, most of the Napier will have around 20% dry matter content. When it comes to feeding, a cow that is feeding on maize silage and a cow that is feeding on Napier silage, they will feed different amounts. This is because a cow consumes according to the dry matter content, and that dry matter content is determined by the body weight. For instance, a cow that has 500 kgs and another cow that has 400 kgs, if you feed on maize silage, they will completely feed different amount. Now, somebody will ask, I've always been saying a cow consumes approximately 10 tons of maize silage per year. And how is that? Yes, the difference will come in. You do not exclusively feed on maize silage or Napier alone. So when you're feeding your cow, you make something called a total mixed ration. And a total mixed ration means it's a balanced diet. Now, for us, for example, you're only feeding on silage to some cows and hay. Now, when it comes to feeding on silage alone, what we do is we also add on concentrate. And concentrates are said to have 90% dry matter content to around 100%. If in the rule of dairy farming, you're supposed to feed 60% on forage and 40% on concentrate. If you mix the two, you'll get that your cow will consume less because of the high dry matter content from the concentrates. Now, if you have come to a conclusion, you have decided I'm supposed to actually make silage of around 20 tons per year, which means now how much space do I need? In terms, you want to make a bunker. I want to make a silage of around 20 tons. Don't make the exact amount. What you do is add at around 10% to 20% losses. For example, if you have calculated and found out that you need to make 20 tons or 10 to 20 tons in one cow, that means you are going to add an extra 10%. For example, we come to our 20 tons. That means we are going to make around 22 to around 25 tons because of the losses that we are going to incur during silage making and silage preservation. Now, when it comes to the size of the bunker that you are supposed to make, then you are going to make a bunker with not 20%, the 20 tons, but 25 tons. And for this to accumulate 25 tons, what are you going to do? We'll say in 1 meter cubic, which means 1 meter length, 1 meter width, and 1 meter depth, will carry approximately 700 kgs to around 850 kg. And why the variance? This is because of the compaction method that you're going to use. For those using machinery in compacting, they'll have more tonnage per cubic meter. If in 1 meter cubic, you require it will carry around how much? If 1 meter cubic will carry a capacity of 750 kgs to 800. What about your 25,000 tons or 50,000 tons or 60,000 tons? How many cubic meters do you require? And if you find probably the cubic meter you require, now you can construct a pit or what we call the silage bunker with that measurement to accumulate your cubic meter that you require according to the amount of forage you want to make. Hope I'm very clear on that, so that you can be able to have enough. And remember, add on the silage losses that are going to occur during the whole process, and which is around 10 to 20%. And it's not a must that it should go bad, but it's a what we call a safety mechanism to avoid a total loss. For example, you decide to actually preserve the exact 20 tons, and in the process you lose around 500 kgs. That means for a whole year there is a month that you are going to suffer without fodder. Make sure you factor in the losses in that silage. And remember, silage is not a guarantee in terms of milk production. What guarantees your milk production and the growth of your animals is how you actually grow your crops in the farm, how you take care of the agronomical activities, and also stage of harvest. If you harvest your maize when it's completely dry, you stop being a milk farmer and start being a manure farmer. Because yes, you'll have very high dry matter content, but the dry matter will contain no nutrients. Hence, your cow will consume and excrete it as very useless material, and hence will give you more manure and very poor body condition compared to giving you milk and growth. When it comes to what we call the Napier, harvest your Napier at around 1 meter and preserve it. And for you to know more, if you need to know how to make silage using maize, I have a video on my YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us, and you'll always be learning more each time we upload another new video. Thank you, and don't forget to do farming the right way for maximum profit and maximum production. See you till next time.